Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Meetinghouse of Provincetown, where we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and where we support each other on our spiritual search for truth and meaning. My name is Reverend Kate Wilkinson, and I'm so glad that you are here with us this morning. Welcome to those of you in the room, and welcome also to those of you joining us via our live stream. I hope you had a good Earth Day yesterday. We lift up our gratitude for our blue-green home. Let's do our best to keep her that way. Before we begin our worship service today, we have just a few announcements to share. This afternoon, we will gather on Zoom at 2 o'clock for a congregational vote on the proposed 8th principle of Unitarian Universalism. So this proposed principle is about building the beloved community through anti-oppression and anti-racism work in ourselves and in our institutions. So look for the link in your email inboxes. We will not be having our regular Zoom coffee hour on Tuesday this week, but don't worry, we will resume that again next week, but no online coffee hour this week. A reminder that on Saturday, May 6th at 2 p.m., we will be holding a memorial service for Alan Gallant, and we hope you can join us. Also coming up in May, a blessing of the bicycles on Monday, May 22nd at 5 o'clock on our front lawn. We're going to fill the lawn with bicycles and riders and do some blessings using our holy water from Water Communion. Also, do remember to fill out our online survey about masking. That survey was sent out to the UUMH folk list this week, and we really want all of your input. So please add your voice to that conversation. And finally, today we hope you can join us for coffee and conversation after the service downstairs in Acker Bosworth Hall. Let's take a moment now to affirm our Meetinghouse covenant. I will say a line, and then you can say it back to me. Love is the spirit of this Meetinghouse. This is our great covenant. To dwell together in peace. To seek the truth in love. And to help one another. And now, as we light our chalice here in the sanctuary, I invite those of you joining us from home to light a candle wherever you are. In that way, we can feel connected even while we are apart. This morning, I invite Bruce and Joan to light our chalice.
This morning's chalice lighting is from a Unitarian Universalist contemporary author and educator, Layla Ibrahim. It is a blessing you were born. It matters what you do with your life. What you know about God is a piece of the truth. You do not have to do it alone.
Thank you. Please join us now in a time of meditation and prayer. During the prayer or at any time during the service, you are welcome to light a silent candle at the table to the right of the pulpit, where there is a journal to record your thoughts and prayers. And after the prayer, we will sing together Spirit of Life. That's hymn number 123. You can also find the words to this song printed on the purple laminated cards in your pews. Our prayer this morning is by Adam Slate. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, Spirit of hope, Spirit of justice, God known by many different names, you have given us a day unique from any other. You have connected us, all of us, with each other and with the world in ways that are largely a mystery to us. You have given us little instruction other than to be present in our own lives, to feel wonder at the creations of the universe, and to love one another. On our journey, we find gifts and challenges in our paths, joys and sorrows, strengths and frailties, some of which we've already encountered and others we have yet to discover. On this unique day, may we receive exactly what we need. Amen.
Today's reading is from Anglo-Irish poet David Whyte. Everything is waiting for you. Your great mistake is to act the drama as if you were alone, as if life were a progressive and cunning crime with no witness to the tiny hidden transgressions. To feel abandoned is to deny the intimacy of your surroundings. Surely, even you, at times, have felt the grand array, the swelling presence, and the chorus crowding out your solo voice. You must note the way the soap dish enables you, or the window latch grants you freedom. Alertness is the hidden discipline of familiarity. The stairs are your mentor of things to come. The doors have always been there to frighten you and invite you. And the tiny speaker in the phone is your dream ladder to divinity. Put down the weight of your aloneness and ease into the conversation. The kettle is singing even as it pours you a drink. The cooking pots have left their arrogant aloofness and seen the good in you at last. All the birds and creatures of the word are unutterably themselves. Everything is waiting for you.
Thank you. At this time, I invite you to rise in body or spirit to sing hymn number 347 in the gray hymnal. That's Gather the Spirit, number 347 in the gray hymnal. Please rise as you are able.
Of this
may be seated. Now is the time when we take a collection for the ongoing support of this Meetinghouse and our shared ministry. As we enjoy a musical reflection by our choir, we welcome your donations here in the sanctuary or online through PayPal and Venmo. You can find that information on our website, uumh.org. I invite 3 volunteer ushers forward, any 3 of you, to take up our collection. On and off-site, your offerings will now be gratefully received.
Good friends together gathered here, where are we bound? Your hands and voices fill my heart. Here is my home. Come morning, come light, where are we bound? Come daylight, come night, here is my home.
If we can join ourselves in song,
Where are we bound? Our hearts will live when we are gone. Here is my home. Come morning, come light, where are we bound? Come daylight, come night, here is my home. The spirit which finds music here, where are we bound? Will live forever in the air. Here is my home. Come morning, come light, where are we bound? Come daylight, come night, here is my home. Here is my home.
Thank you. In 1970, Judy Blume sat down to write, and the story of Margaret Simon came pouring out of her. While the story was not autobiographical exactly, the character of Margaret was pretty close to what Judy was like at her age. Margaret's age is 11. She is going into the 6th grade and is facing a big move from New York City to the suburbs of New Jersey. She needs to make a whole new group of friends and decide who she's going to be in this new life of hers. She's also facing puberty and a religious quest to find out where she fits in, both in the world and in the communities of faith that are a mystery to her. God, however, is not a mystery to her. She has a personal relationship with God that transcends any formal religious setting. She talks to God at night and feels a strong connection through her prayers. The story, which Bloom entitled, "Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret," is very specific to this one preteen girl, but also so universal that over the last 50 years since it was published, millions of people have seen themselves in Margaret's story. How many of you have read this book? Okay, so about half of you. Well, even if you haven't read this book, I think that you should learn a little bit about it because there are actually a lot of references to this book in pop culture, and you might start to notice them now, even if you didn't before. For instance, in an episode of Ted Lasso, you might have seen the character Beard saying, "Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret's little boy." A 1999 episode of South Park was entitled, "Are You There, God? It's Me, Jesus." And now, after 50 years, this popular YA book is finally being made into a movie. It comes out this week, actually, and that's one of the reasons I decided to talk about it this morning, because I, for one, am so excited to see this beloved story play out on the big screen. And what is the story? Well, it's written in the form of Margaret's diary entries and also her prayers, which always begin with, you guessed it, "Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret." "Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. We're moving today. I'm so scared, God. I've never lived anywhere but here. Suppose I hate my new school. Suppose everyone there hates me. Please help me, God. Don't let New Jersey be too horrible. Thank you." Now, Margaret's mother was raised Christian and her father was raised Jewish. Both sets of grandparents were upset by the wedding. "My mother's parents, who live in Ohio," Margaret writes, "told her they didn't want a Jewish son-in-law. If she wanted to ruin her life, that was her business, but they would never accept my father as her husband. My grandmother wasn't happy about getting a Christian daughter-in-law, but she at least accepted the situation." Without the support of their parents, Margaret's parents ended up eloping. And when Margaret was born and they faced the issue of which faith to raise her in, they decided together, none. She would decide for herself when she was older, they said. "But if you aren't any religion," Margaret's new friend Janie asks, "how are you going to know if you should join the Y or the Jewish Community Center?" These are big questions for a 6th grader. But they're also big questions for all of us, right? What is our identity? How much of ourselves do we inherit from our families of origin? And how much is up to us? Where will we fit in? Where can we find community? "Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. You know, God, my new friends all belong to the Y or the Jewish Community Center. Which way am I supposed to go? I don't know what you want me to do about that. On the first day at her new school, her teacher, Mr. Benedict, writes these phrases on the chalkboard and asks them to fill in the rest. My name is, please call me, I like, I hate, this year in school, I think male teachers are. Margaret writes, my name is Margaret Ann Simon. Please call me Margaret. I like long hair, tuna fish, the smell of rain, and things that are pink. I hate pimples, baked potatoes, when my mother's mad, and religious holidays. This year in school, I want to have fun and also learn enough to go to the 7th grade. I think male teachers are the opposite of female teachers. Mr. Benedict wants to know why Margaret hates religious holidays. She says, none of those holidays are special to me. I don't belong to any religion. The next week they are assigned a project in class, but are allowed to pick their own topic. Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. What would you think of me doing a project on religion? You wouldn't mind, would you, God? I'll tell you all about it. And I won't make any decisions without asking you first. I think it's time for me to decide what to be. I can't go on being nothing forever, can I? Margaret sets out to explore the different faith traditions by going to their different services. Now, in the Unitarian Universalist tradition, this is exactly how we educate our kids. In churches with a religious education program, when children get to the 6th grade, there's a program called Neighboring Faiths, and students visit a nearby liberal Christian church like the United Church of Christ, an AME Zion church, a Roman Catholic church, a Hindu temple, a Buddhist community, and a synagogue. Margaret decides to start by going to temple with her grandmother, who is thrilled. On Rosh Hashanah morning, while she is still in bed, Margaret prays. Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. I'm going to temple today with Grandma. It's a holiday. I guess you know that. Well, my father thinks it's a mistake, and my mother thinks the whole idea is crazy, but I'm going anyway. I'm sure this will help me decide what to be. I've never been inside a temple or a church. I'll look for you, God. In her journal, she writes, I had a new suit and a small velvet hat. My mother said everyone wears new clothes for the Jewish holidays. It was hot for October, and my father said he remembered it was always hot on the Jewish holidays when he was a kid. I had to wear white gloves. They made my hands sweat. By the time I got to New York, the gloves were pretty dirty, so I took them off and stuffed them in my pocketbook. Grandma met me at our usual spot in the bus terminal and took me in a taxi to her temple. We got there at 10:30. Grandma had to show a card to an usher, and then he led us to our seats, which were in the 5th row in the middle. Grandma whispered to the people sitting near her that I was her granddaughter, Margaret. The people looked at me and smiled. I smiled back. I was glad when the rabbi stepped out on the stage and held up his hands. While this was going on, soft music played. I thought it sounded beautiful. The rabbi was dressed in a long white robe. He looked like a priest, except he didn't have on the backwards collar that priests wear. And also he had on a little hat on his head that Grandma called a yarmulke. The rabbi welcomed us and started to do a lot of things I didn't understand. We had to stand up and sit down a lot, and sometimes we all read together in English from the prayer book. I didn't understand too much of what I was reading. Other times the choir sang. That was definitely the best part. Some of the service was in Hebrew, and I was surprised to see that Grandma could recite along with the rabbi. I looked around a lot to see what was going on. But since I was in the 5th row, there wasn't much for me to see except for the 4 rows in front of me. I knew it wouldn't be polite to actually turn my head and look behind me. At 11:30, the rabbi made a speech. At first, I tried very hard to understand what he was talking about, but after a while, I gave up and started counting different colored hats. I counted 8 brown, 6 black, 3 red, a yellow, and a leopard before the rabbi finished. Then we all stood up again, and everyone sang a song in Hebrew that I didn't understand, and that was it. I expected something else, but I don't know what exactly. A feeling, maybe? But I suppose you have to go more than once to know what it's all about. A few weeks later, Margaret goes to church with Janie Loomis, who she knows from gym class. It is Presbyterian. She writes in her journal after, "The funniest thing was, it was just like temple, except it was all in English. But we read from a prayer book that didn't make sense, and a minister gave a sermon I couldn't follow, and I counted 8 black hats, 4 red ones, 6 blue, and 2 fur. At the end of the service, everyone sang a hymn. Then we stood on line to shake hands with the minister. By then, I was a pro at it. And that night she prays, 'Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. I've been to church. I didn't feel anything special in there, God, even though I wanted to. I'm sure it has nothing to do with you. Next time, I'll try harder.' At the holidays, the whole school was putting on a pageant for the parents, and Margaret's 6th grade class was the choir. We didn't even have to try out, Margaret says. We practiced singing every day with the music teacher. I thought by the time Christmas finally rolled around, I wouldn't have any voice left. We learned 5 Christmas carols and 3 Hanukkah songs. We all had to carry pencil-sized flashlights instead of candles. We practiced marching down the halls and into the auditorium singing Adeste Fidelis in English and in Latin. A week before the pageant, Alan Gordon told Mr. Benedict that he wasn't going to sing the Christmas songs because it was against his religion. Then Lisa Murphy raised her hand and said she wasn't going to sing the Hanukkah songs because it was against her religion. Mr. Benedict explained that songs were for everyone. But the next day, Alan brought in a note from home, and from then on, he marched but didn't sing. Lisa sang when we marched, but she didn't even move her lips during the Hanukkah songs. One thing that's a little unique about Unitarian Universalism is the room it has within it for all of the different faith traditions. We have no problem singing Hanukkah songs one week and Christmas songs the next, because we recognize that all religious traditions are a path to spiritual truth. There is no one right one. It just helps us to be on a path so that we can continue forward with our journey of seeking and learning and understanding the world. Now, when we attempt to include all of the religious traditions in our seeking, we do have to be careful about the difference between appreciation and appropriation. It's important to know the context and the history of each ritual and tradition. And it's important to follow the lead of people who have the cultural knowledge of each tradition and not just take the bits and pieces that we like. It can be a fine line when we are so devoted to religious pluralism. What's important, I think, is that you don't need to think just like the person in the pew next to you in order to honor their path or in order to keep seeking together. What is special is when we can each share our stories and be our full selves and mark special occasions together. Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. I want you to know I'm giving a lot of thought to Christmas and Hanukkah this year. I'm trying to decide if one might be special for me. I'm really thinking hard, God. So far, I haven't come up with any answers. Margaret goes to Christmas Eve services with the Wheelers at the United Methodist Church, but doesn't feel God there either. She does love the choir. Margaret continues to make friends and find her crowd, but she gets swept up in some mean girl stuff along the way. It happens to the best of us, doesn't it? It's so tempting to bond with other people by liking who they like and belittling who they don't. It's a quick way to make a connection, but it's not the best way, and it comes at a cost. One day, Margaret is very cruel to a classmate of hers. Later, she feels extremely guilty about it. She yearns for absolution, but doesn't know how to go about getting it. She decides to go to confession at the Catholic Church. I stepped into the church and tiptoed up the aisle, Margaret writes. It was so quiet. I wondered what would happen if I decided to scream. Of course I knew I wouldn't, but I couldn't help wondering about how a scream would sound in there. I was really hot in my heavy coat, but I didn't take it off. I stood in front of the door to the confessional. What was inside? I opened it a little. There was nobody in there. It looked like a wooden phone booth. I stepped in and closed the door behind me. I waited for something to happen. I didn't know what I was supposed to do, so I just sat there. Finally, I heard a voice. Yes, my child? At first, I thought it was God. I really, truly thought it was, and my heart started to pound like crazy, and I was all sweaty inside my coat and sort of dizzy, too. But then I realized it was only the priest in the booth next to me. He couldn't see me, and I couldn't see him, but we could hear each other. Still, I didn't say anything. Yes, my child, he said again. I began. Yes, said the priest. I'm sorry, I whispered. I flung open the door and ran down the aisle and out of the church. I made my way back to school crying, feeling horribly sick and scared stiff I would throw up. I so related to Margaret growing up. I've always had an overactive conscience. When I did something wrong, it ate me up inside. I also yearned for absolution, but found no path to it within the UU Church. Catholics have confession. The Jewish tradition has Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. But what did I have as a Unitarian Universalist that could help me to move beyond my mistakes? There's a lot in our faith tradition that helps us to be our best selves. But what about the times when we aren't? Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. I did an awful thing today, just awful. I'm definitely the most horrible person who ever lived, and I really don't deserve anything good to happen to me. I picked on Laura Danker. Just because I felt mean, I took it all out on her. I really hurt Laura's feelings. Why did you let me do that? I've been looking for you, God. I looked in temple, I looked in church, and today I looked for you when I wanted to confess, but you weren't there. I didn't feel you at all, not the way I do when I talk to you at night. Why, God? Why do I only feel you when I'm alone? One of the reasons that we seek religion is that we feel the need to have a system that holds us accountable. If not a system, then a community, a moral compass. Because we all stray sometimes from what we believe is right and good, and we need help making our way back to that place. For me, having a community where I can be honest about my shortcomings helps to take the shame away so that I can get on with the work of doing better without feeling so alone. A surprise visit from the estranged grandparents brings about the following conversation toward the end of the book. Look, my mother said, trying a smile. You know we don't practice any religion. Here it comes, I thought. I wanted to leave the room, but I felt like I was glued to my seat. "We hoped by now you'd change your mind about religion," Grandfather said. "Especially for Margaret's sake," Grandmother added. "A person's got to have religion." "Let's not get into a philosophical discussion," my father said, annoyed. He sent my mother a warning look across the room. Grandfather laughed. "I'm not being a philosopher, Herb." "Look," my mother explained, "we're letting Margaret choose her own religion when she grows up." "If she wants to," my father said defiantly. "Nonsense," Grandmother said. "A person doesn't choose religion." "A person's born to it," Grandfather boomed. Grandmother smiled at last and gave a small laugh. "So Margaret is a Christian," she announced, like we all should have known. "Please," my mother said, "Margaret could just as easily be Jewish. Don't you see? If you keep this up, you're going to spoil everything." "I don't mean to upset you, dear," Grandmother told my mother, "but a child is always the religion of the mother. And you, Barbara, were born Christian. You were baptized. It's that simple." "Margaret is nothing," my father stormed, "and I'll thank you for ending this discussion right now." I didn't want to listen anymore. How could they talk that way in front of me? Didn't they know I was a real person with feelings of my own? "Margaret," Grandmother said, touching my sleeve, "it's not too late for you, dear. You're still God's child. Maybe when I'm visiting, I could take you to church and talk to the minister. He might be able to straighten things out." "Stop it," I hollered, jumping up. "All of you, just stop it. I can't stand another minute listening to you. Who needs religion? Who? Not me. I don't need it. I don't even need God." I ran out of the den and up to my room. I heard my mother say, "Why did you have to start? Now you've ruined everything." I was never going to talk to God again. What did God want from me anyway? I was through with God and God's religions, and was never going to set foot in the Y or the Jewish Community Center. Never. The next morning, I stayed in my room. I couldn't even go down for breakfast. I caught myself starting to say, "Are you there, God?" But then I remembered that I wasn't talking to God anymore. And that's the thing. Sometimes people's rules about God ruin God for everyone. Even as Unitarian Universalists, some of our old understandings of rules about God and the meaning of that word get in the way of us having a relationship with what is holy. When Margaret finally handed in her assignment on religion, she cried. She didn't know why. She wanted to talk it over with God. But then she remembered that they were on a break. Now, I can't talk about this book without telling you that one of the things Margaret prayed about a lot was getting her period. It's a strange time being an 11 or 12-year-old girl. One by one, each of your friends becomes a woman, and it's very unclear when it will happen to you. You dread and look forward to it. Margaret mostly looked forward to it because it would prove that she was like everyone else, which is really all you want to be when you are 11. And some of us still strive for that as adults, although many of us now see normalcy as much less of a prize now. One of her early prayers was, "Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. Life is getting worse every day. I'm going to be the only one who doesn't get it. I know it, God, just like I'm the only one without religion. Why can't you help me? Haven't I always done what you wanted? Please let me be like everyone else." In Unitarian Universalism, sexual education is part of the religious education curriculum. In a program called Our Whole Lives, or OWL, children learn about their bodies and about safe and healthy relationships. They learn about sex. We don't think it should be seen as something that is stigmatized, but a natural, beautiful part of the human experience. And let's face it, a lot of wrong information gets passed on when you depend on your 11-year-old friends for your education. And usually when religion teaches about sex and bodies, it's to say that they are shameful or that abstinence is the only way to go. And we offer a different voice from the faith camp. In the end, what brings Margaret back to God is the moment she has been waiting for all year, becoming a woman. Until their estrangement, she had been praying to God for this every night. And now she prayed, "Are you still there, God? It's me, Margaret. I know you're there, God. I know you wouldn't have missed this for anything. Thank you, God. Thanks an awful lot." Put down the weight of your aloneness, the poet David White writes. And perhaps that's what our search for faith is, whether we find it in God or the people in the pews or a personal relationship with Jesus or the traditions that have been passed down through thousands of years, connecting us to our ancestors. Put down the weight of your aloneness. Everything is waiting for you. Now indulge me a little. You know about the book now. The question is, will Margaret's story translate to the big screen? Judy Blume says yes. She's one of the producers, and according to her, the movie is even better than the book. You don't hear that too often, especially coming from the author. It will star Rachel McAdams and Kathy Bates and a young actress that I don't know named Abby Ryder Fortson. Comes out Friday. But that movie is not the only reason I wanted to talk to you today about the book. There is another reason. Because beginning in the 1970s, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, has regularly been on the banned books list. Judy Blume's books were thought to be too honest about women's bodies and about the choices that we have in our faith lives. And while in the 1970s, a girl might have read Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, and learned about puberty in a way that made her feel less alone, today youth seek solace in books that feature gay characters, books that talk about the realities of racism, books that have transgender themes. And so it's important that when they reach for them, those books are on the shelves. Last month, a Vero Beach high school removed an Anne Frank graphic novel. Tampa Bay parents have challenged The Bluest Eye and the movie Ruby Bridges. Florida's controversial Stop Woke Act says that media specialists should avoid materials that provoke feelings of guilt, anguish, or other forms of psychological distress related to race or gender. Tampa Bay Times columnist Stephanie Hayes says, Margaret reminds us that when loving parents and skilled teachers engage in questions instead of denying conversations, worlds open up. But Florida, she says, is surely leading the way in shutting conversations down. And they're not the only ones. In Llano County, Texas, where judges ordered banned books to be returned to a library system, county commissioners have started talking about a workaround: closing public libraries. Missouri's GOP-controlled House of Representatives voted this month to eliminate all library funding from its budget. A Michigan library lost its funding last year after it refused to pull certain books with LGBTQ subject matter. It's important that we not rest on our laurels because we think that this is happening over there, because history has shown that it's only a matter of time until it's happening here. During the 2021-2022 school year, more than 1,600 books were banned from school libraries in 32 states. And the number of bans are only increasing. In fact, this year they have doubled. Banning books is one of the first signs of censorship, and it is a slippery slope toward the unraveling of democracy itself. Banning books has also become a proxy war for broader cultural issues like LGBTQ rights, gender identity, and racial inequality. The number one most banned book right now is Gender Queer, a memoir. Number 7 is The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie, one of my favorite authors. That book deals with poverty, sexuality, bullying, and alcohol. Number 13 is This Book is Gay, which includes stories and interviews from kids, teens, and adults across the LGBTQ spectrum. Number 17 is Beloved by Toni Morrison. Number 23 is Alison Bechdel's graphic novel, Fun Home. Number 25 is the book 19 Minutes by Jodi Picoult, which depicts a school shooting. We can't ban guns, but we can ban books about their consequences. Number 31 is It's Perfectly Normal, Changing Bodies, Growing Up, Sex and Sexual Health. Number 46 is How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram Kendi. Number 50 on the list is the children's book And Tango Makes Three, the lovely picture book about the real-life story of 2 male chin-strap penguins who formed a bond at the Central Park Zoo and hatched and raised a baby chick named Tango. And this one didn't make the top 50, but it is on the list. My favorite book, children's book, Stregonona, a charming folk tale about a pot that wouldn't stop cooking noodles, did make the list of banned books, presumably because it promotes some sort of witchcraft. There's an incantation used to stop the pasta pot from boiling. Wishing to protect children from the realities of adult life, grubby, earthbound, disappointing, for at least a little while, is deeply human, Katie Waldman of The New Yorker writes. Kids mature at different rates, and it's not unreasonable for the parents of 12-year-olds to want to keep their own children from reading the same books as 18-year-olds. But a glance at the list of most frequently banned books makes it clear, she says, that mature content is a fig leaf. What parents and advocacy groups are challenging in these books is difference itself. We meet Margaret at a crossroads in so many respects, and we watch her navigate the way forward with some grace and with some missteps. And it reminds us of the crossroads that we have been at in our own lives. Just like we would like to use our adult mind and experience and reasoning to save Margaret from some of her angst and mistakes, we would also love the opportunity to go back in time, to give messages to our younger selves, to be more patient, more understanding, to stop ourselves from hanging out with the wrong people, or to stop ourselves from being mean to those whose full stories we didn't know at the time. We would like to go back in time and tell ourselves, it gets better. You will find your place. You are loved. We can't go back in time and give those messages to ourselves, but we can fight to make sure that kids growing up today have access to those messages. We can fight to stop the banning of books. We can create spaces where things can be talked about and where people feel less alone. Are you there, God? It's us, the UU Meetinghouse of Provincetown. We'd like to help with that. Please show us how. Amen, and blessed be.
It has become our practice to pose a question based on the theme of the service each week. We won't be having our regular Zoom coffee hour to talk about the question this week, but it can be a topic of sharing at coffee hour today or with friends during the week. Our question this week is, what's something that you would like to tell your younger self? What's something that you would like to tell your younger self?
I'll end with these closing words. Your great mistake is to act the drama as if you were alone, as if life were a progressive and cunning crime with no witness to the tiny hidden transgressions. To feel abandoned is to deny the intimacy of your surroundings. Surely even you at times have felt the grand array. Put down the weight of your aloneness and ease into the conversation. Everything is waiting for you. Go in peace.